you. You'll be happy with the foods you eat. Mixing different kinds, each meal can be a treat.
Hey, aloha everybody, this is Brian, webmaster from RtW.com, your grandma's favorite site. So good you gotta bookmark it twice. I'm in your feed, I got what you need. You need this. Yeah, what's up everybody? So this summer I've got some spectacular things lined up for RtW.com. I'm taking not one, not two, not three, but 4 trips in total. And while I'm traveling, I'm so blessed that I get the opportunity to hang out with some of my favorite blogging buddies down in Texas, North Carolina, all over the place. But until then, the lighting rig has went down. Until then, that's going to be a while, and I don't want the site to lay relatively dormant during these next few weeks and months as I hit the road. And so I figured I would do a little impromptu video, just me and the camera hanging out. I have a giant closet. It's actually directly behind where the camera is presently located, that's filled with stuff that I've accumulated, not just over the last few years, the last decade. Some of these items I've been hanging on to since childhood. There's plenty of boxes of physical media, CDs, DVDs, etc., books and whatnot, but there's also a lot of junk. There's toys, there's ephemera from bygone era, pop culture overload, and I was just in there a couple minutes ago and I saw a bag, kind of a nondescript bag full of junk, and I realized that most likely my wife, in a way to try to help control all the junk that's accumulated in my closet, has threw some things into bags just so it's not spilling out and all over the place. I saw this bag and I'm like, man, it's such a random hodgepodge of memories and of pop culture, which is kind of, you know, a big in for a lot of you folks to my site. I want to preface this by saying, too, I have not handpicked or selected anything in this bag. Were I to do so, there are a bunch of amazing things I could show you in the closet, and many of them will come to light in the weeks and months and even years to come on RtW. But this bag, you know, it's just, we're going to be discovering it together. So you'll see the look of surprise on my face. And hopefully there's some stuff in here that you guys will find cool and interesting. But this is a impromptu video, so let's do it. Up first, the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle show. It's probably not remembered as fondly as lovers of the show may like. However, I have a pretty big attachment to it. 2003 was like perfect timing for me. I was recently a high school graduate. I had plenty of disposable time and income, and this hit me right in my nostalgic sweet spot as a child of the 80s and early 90s. These were given out, if I'm not mistaken, with potentially a specific figure. I'm not sure, but however, there it is. Let's see what else we got here. Oh wow, so this little samurai guy, still in the package. This was purchased at a gift shop in Japan as part of World Showcase at Epcot down in Disney World. And I very briefly had a cubicle job for a few months back in the day, probably 2006-ish. And I actually had this pin with a push pin in my cubicle with a bunch of other junk, some He-Man pictures, and I was a weird guy. Up next, a generic wrestler. As I sometimes tell folks, professional wrestling is my Brokeback Mountain insofar as the classic line, I wish I knew how to quit you. I've been a wrestling fan for so long, I've sometimes tried to turn my back onto the sport of the gods, but I always get drawn back in. It's just a simple pleasure. To me, it's kind of the fast food equivalent of entertainment. You don't really have to have your brain plugged in. You don't necessarily get nurtured from enjoying it, but it's fun. And sometimes you just like to cut loose. Speaking of He-Man, this may be a He-Man shield. Not entirely sure. Oh wow. Okay, here's some nice... This is a patch, which actually would look nice on a hooded jacket or a sweatshirt or something, from the Animatrix. Ooh, I had it upside down. Whoa, sorry. The Animatrix was a... it was an accessory to the Matrix trilogy, both prequel and maybe sequel. It was other stories within the universe of the Matrix. The Matrix recently in the news, well, at least a few months back, possibly being rebooted, or at least another story in the mythology. We'll see how that goes.
Just don't break it.
Speaking of not well remembered shows from the early 2000s, this is Transformers Robots in the Skies. It's one of the few Transformers series not to get a full-blown DVD complete series box set, which is unfortunate. I really dug that one. So I guess at one point I had cleared out my wallet because there's a bunch of little business cards and whatnot. This is the Brass Armadillo Antique Mall, which was amazing. It sort of exists now under a different name and in a different location. You know, as a teenager, you're like, antique mall? I don't want to go look at china and you know, dishes and porcelain dolls or whatever it might be. Completely wrong. Once I stepped foot in there, I was blown away, not just by the sheer size and scope of the place, but there was also toys and all kinds of cool old collectibles. In fact, I've gotten my brother for Christmas a couple really neat items that are from the past that you couldn't find anywhere else. Red Lobster, this particular card is for a location that no longer exists. And actually I'm kind of glad that I just found this because as a child, my mom on my birthday would say, "Where would you like to go?" And Red Lobster was always my go-to. So growing up, it was probably my #1 favorite restaurant. I still dig it. I don't get there too often, but I do like some shrimp from time to time. And but yeah, this particular location is the one that I would go to, and no longer there. Golden Dragon Asian Buffet, it is still operational in Hamilton, Ohio. Hey, here's the front of a Valentine's Whitman sampler with little Linus. We've got some Pez, Maggie and Lisa. Girl power indeed. Still in the package. Alright, another one of those. Peep this out. Raybo's Southern Grill. Now I know this means nothing to all but maybe 2 or 3 people in the world, but this was a restaurant long gone inside the deadest of dead malls. Cincinnati Mills, Cincinnati Mall, Forest Fair Mall. It's had different guises and names, but one thing that you can call it is a ghost town. But at one point there was a restaurant in there, Raybo's. It was really cool. Long gone. I should have probably saved this one for last. This one I could probably pull off a legitimate review of. It's a Spin Pop candy from Superman. And the gimmick, were it not, you know, probably over a decade old, is that if you push the S emblem on his chest, the sucker would swirl. Not going to happen today, though. The sucker itself, strawberry? If I had to guess, yeah. Man, the batteries in this thing. Toast. A bunch of other knickknacks and bric-a-brac. Giordano's pizza. The very first time I went to Disney, it was the only time that we didn't stay on site, on property, like actually at Disney officially. We stayed in Kissimmee, Florida. Short drive to the Disney area, but probably the only benefit of that trip, of not staying on Disney property, was that we had a little bit more options when it came time to unwinding and eating. And we found this Italian restaurant. It was my first ever opportunity to have traditional, legitimate Chicago deep dish pizza, and blown away. We actually ended up going there twice on that trip, and I kept this little menu. And the prices aren't bad. 2005, it says. Alright, winding down here, just a few things left. This Mega Man, if I'm not mistaken, was utilized in a Review the World article around the same time frame, 2006. Don't recall if it was a full-length review. Whoa, look, we have somebody joining us. This is Owen Leo. Hey, Owen. What were you watching in there?
I was watching 4 rides, Tower of Terror, Splash Mountain, Tower of Terror, and Pirates of the Caribbean.
This guy just got back from Disney World recently, and he's been watching Disney rides on YouTube. So we're at Disney, and now he's watching Disney rides. And I'm going through some junk from an old bag and making a video. My ticket to X-Men 3, The Last Stand. So the bag is mostly just a couple miscellaneous items, a championship belt. This seal was from episode 1 of RtW TV, if I'm not mistaken.
Hey, look.
A Pez? Oh man. Couple last things and we're going to wrap this up. My Jimmy John's Frequent Freaker card. It's got a couple stamps on the back. I wonder if they'll still accept this today. Mama Foo's. Oh man, this one brings back some memories. This was a really, really short-lived restaurant. It was like a noodle place. It was in a area in Westchester, Ohio. It was really cool, and man, I miss it. And it was only around for a very short-lived time. It wasn't your traditional takeout Chinese place. Like, it wasn't, you know, it was kind of, it had a chain appeal, similar to like I don't know, maybe like a Panera Bread or something. You would go in and order. There was different things. You could mix and match and kind of pick your dish. Anyway, I don't know. I don't even know if they're still around anywhere. But Mama Foo's was the bomb and sorely missed. My favorite superhero has always been the Incredible Hulk. It looks like I have a Hulk Gray here card from a very familiar trading card line of the 90s. Speaking of long gone things, here is a ticket to Wonder Park. Wonder Park was an indoor play area, sort of like a Chuck E. Cheese, but it was inside the mall, the aforementioned Dead Mall. And yeah, nice little souvenir. If you Google it, that park was shut down. Wonder Park was shut down due to some... I don't know the appropriate way to say this. Some seedy things that happened there. So, just a internet search away. I got an old pay stub. I was hoping it would be a cool one from one of my old favorite jobs, like movie theater I worked at, but nope, it's a grocery store I worked at for all of like 2 months before I walked out. I think a good spot to end this. Is with a fortune from a fortune cookie. This particular one, you will never regret the present you live to its fullest.